I finally got my mitts on King Sue from Toppling Goliath, one of the most highly rated double IPAs in the world. I've been trying to get my hands on this for a while, at least aware of it, and I missed it in Chicago last winter, and then it just happened they shipped a whole bunch of this stuff to Boston, and I would have never guessed it. I don't know when they're going to ship it out here again. So I thought it was necessary to do a review. Never had it. This bottle is exactly 2 weeks old. I assume it's all Citra hops, just like Pseudo Sue is, but I'm not sure. They don't give you a lot of info on it. It's 8%. And I just want to drink this. It looks like this is way hazier than Pseudo Sue and all like the single IPAs from Toppling Goliath. So it's going to be a little bit more New England-y, I guess. And I have really, really high expectations. Whoa, that's pale. Very pale. Very hazy. Milky. And on some pours I saw of this didn't have a very nice head. But that is a pretty good head. Oh, that is up there with the murkiest of the murky made in New England. This is not what any of Toppling Goliath's other beers look like. Their hop smack, I guess, is pretty hazy, but not quite like this. This is, I don't know, it reminds me of, not quite, maybe not Bissell Brothers, but Austin Street and Neverender. I don't know if anyone's had that one. The head looks like it won't stick around too long. It's soapy, but the bubbles aren't super dense. And the aroma is delicious. Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if that was all Citra. It's got all of the overripe tropical fruits you could think of and sweet stone fruits, along with that vanilla cotton candy birthday cake sort of thing too, that I usually get from Citra when done in the style, especially if there's lots of just simple old pale malt sweetness going on. But it smells really good. The aroma isn't hugely gigantic, but it is very, very easy to pick up on and to enjoy. And of course, there's a little bit of super sweet orange juice in the nose too. Not quite grapefruit, but I bet there'll be some ruby red grapefruit juice flavors. Head's died down a little bit there. Thick. Ooh. But as I could guess, when a beer looks like this, it's going to have some chalky, just hop protein, all that unfiltered, all that yeast in there is going to give you some chalky texture. But that is an explosion of flavor. It's actually much more bitter and grapefruity. It's even got some sort of bitter but grapefruit, but still very juicy. It's not pithy. A little bit zesty, but the aroma is really, really big on the sweet citra, all that stuff I was saying. But then it gets really, really orange juicy and grapefruity on the tongue. And that's very intense. This is way more bitter and intense of a beer than all of the Toppling Goliath beers I've had up until now. It is very nice. The chalkiness it's not bothering me. It's not lending a weird flavor. That's what I've liked about Toppling Goliath beers, that whatever they do with their yeast, or what their yeast is, it really helps to bring out the super fruity qualities of the hops, and it doesn't have a weird finish that's muddled. There's no like dead yeast flavor or anything. And it has chalkiness, but it doesn't have a bunch of actual chalk flavor. It's mainly just in the texture, but the flavor is just really, really juicy, slightly astringent, but I kind of like that. I like how it's got a complexity between the super sweet candy-like, ridiculously ripe aroma, and then a little bit of a sharper more bitter grapefruit flavor. At first, I was a little afraid it was going to be too sharp, kind of like Trillium's Headroom and some of their other ridiculously hopped double IPAs that are just too much for me. This wasn't like that. It's not very dank at all. I'm getting very few green flavors and aromas. And the bitterness does linger. I'm gonna have to wait and see if like the chalkiness and the bitterness is unpleasant. But definitely get some good whiffs of this before you sip it, because you'll be missing the candy sweet side of this beer. Yeah, it's kind of messing with me because usually beers that are this chalky and bitter, I don't like that much, but it's still really big on the fruit. Like that overly hazy, overly dry hopped quality of this isn't taking away from the juiciness of it, which I find happens with some beer when they're just, there's so much haze and so much like, that overly dry hop bite that is kind of like, it's not quite alpha acid, bitterness. It's just a really raised perceived dryness of the beer, I think. And now the aroma's even shifted a lot to a really, really intense grapefruit orange melange, maybe a little bit of mango and peach in there. But this is surprisingly bitter. It is really good. It's very well done. I would be okay if it were a little less hazy and it didn't have as much chalkiness, because then I think it would not be it would be a little bit fruitier even maybe. But it's definitely not a boring beer, but it's not unpleasant to drink. It's just right on the edge of being too much, I would say. But I don't know if it's one of my favorites. Maybe I would like this in a little bit more in a week. I bet when this was a day old, it would be a little bit too bitter for me. But I love the intensity of it, and it's all great flavors. Nothing wrong with this one, except for a little bit too much chalk and bitterness. For my palate, I mean, I'll probably get used to it. And I bet if you drink a whole bomber of this yourself and it gets a little warm and flat, that probably would not be very pleasant. But sharing this and downing it while it's cold is a great activity to do. I would do 4 or 5 for this one. And actually, I haven't talked about throat burn, but because I didn't really notice it doesn't have much of that Trillium throat burn. There's a little bit of a heat thing. That's mainly just from the alcohol, but I'm not getting alcohol flavors or aromas. It does have that chalky bitterness that dries out your tongue, but it isn't too much throat burn and citric sort of acid type burn. So it definitely deserves a 4.5, maybe plus even. But it's a very, very good beer. It lives up to the hype. It shouldn't disappoint anyone who gets this one, unless it's like really old. But I bet this is still fine at a month or maybe even 2 months. It's hard to tell. These beers seem to drop off all of a sudden. But it's really good. It's probably worth trading for too. Goodbye.